Shanda Vangas is a senior corporate social responsibility consultant for Corebridge Financial. She joined the company as a consultant in June 21 and led the separation of the CSR function through the spinoff from AIG. She developed the new company's CSR strategy to align with the new brand and business objectives and executed the launch of Corebridge CSR programs. She currently manages the programs for the company, including charitable giving and sponsorships, strategic partnerships, volunteering, matching grants, and the Compassionate Colleague Fund. Shanda earned a certificate in corporate citizenship practice from the Boston College Center for Corporate Citizenship, a master's degree in nonprofit management, and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Kansas. She is a diehard Kansas Jayhawk basketball fan, a proud AmeriCorps alumni, and president of the Maui United Way Board of Directors. Shanda and her partner, Brett, recently moved from Maui to Orange County, California, where she frequently begins meetings and emails with aloha. So, Shanda, we're so delighted to have you with us. I think a good way to start this conversation, unless you disagree, is to really get an overview of Corebridge. I mean, it might not be a household term, a household word. The brand might not be, commonplace to us. So start us off by giving us a background of the company. Who is Corebridge? What services does it offer? And, where's it headquartered? The size and scope of the organization, so we have a better understanding of the company.
Great. I think it's always great to start with who the company is and what we do, because if you're fundraising from companies and corporations, you really do need to understand their business before you make an ask for a partnership or a gift. So Corebridge Financial is one of the largest and most established providers of insurance and financial services, retirement products in the country. We're a relatively new brand, but we're not a new business. We used to be the life and retirement business under AIG, and we spun off from AIG in 2022 and IPO'd and became Corebridge Financial on September 15th, 2022. So while we and most of our employees have been around a long time doing this work, the name Corebridge Financial is still fairly new in the marketplace. And so we're not a household name yet, but I do work on the marketing and brand team. So we're working on that every day to make sure people know who we are and how we can serve them. Our purpose is to empower people to take steps towards their financial goals. We're all about taking action. That's our tagline. Action is everything. And we really look at that as it's our goal to work with our clients and partner institutions to help people take steps towards their financial security and stability to achieve financial wellness.
So you're a B2C?
B2C and B2B. So we have 4 key lines of business. So what we call our retirement services is our group retirement business. And so this is where my colleague Karen, who's on today, works and had met Joy in Seattle. So our group retirement business is a for-profit business, but we actually serve the nonprofit sector and the public sector. So we provide 403B retirement plans to nonprofit organizations, K-12 school districts, higher ed institutions, healthcare institutions, government agencies. So what we do is we help people like all of you build for your retirement and take those steps every day to reach your financial goals. So that's our group retirement business. We also have individual retirement, and that's more of a direct to consumer, and then working through partner financial advising organizations, and we provide annuity products through that. And then we have our life insurance business, which is also can be direct to consumer. And then we have institutional markets, which is really serving financial institutions with investment products for them. But for the day-to-day, what most people know us for is that life and retirement business, helping people build financial security, whether it's through their insurance products or their investments and planning for retirement.
So if somebody doesn't have somebody that they're already working with, they can reach out to Karun, because that's the work he does, right?
He works primarily with people who are in one of our retirement plans. So, so it's a little bit different on that side. But if you work with, financial advisors at LPL or the various other, those companies out there, and you're interested in learning about Corebridge products, they can direct you to the types of investments that we have through that.
Okay.
So we are headquartered in Houston. We have 4 key hubs where we have a larger employee presence. So Houston, New York City, and Jersey City, and then Woodland Hills, California. And then the rest of our workforce is around the country. We have people doing financial advising and selling our products and working with clients in every state in the country. So we were at a remote workforce before remote workforce was the biggest thing. But we are still, like every company, sort of adapting to how do you have one culture and one company and work together when we're not physically together as much. About 6,500 employees right now.
6,500.
I didn't check today, but we're generally in that range right now.
Okay. And for those of you wondering, Karun is based in Seattle, and I actually met him at a networking event. And look at this, Karun. We've gone from having a breakfast and brunch or never mind.
Brunch and breakfast, I think. Yep.
That's it called. Breakfast and brunch, and look at us today. So, Shanda, you're there in Houston, and your president and CEO, I believe, is a Kevin Hogan.
Yeah.
Yep. And Kevin has been with the organization a long time, always been with the business side of things a long time, even though, Corebridge Financial itself is, like you said, it's only been IPO'd since September 2022. But Kevin has been with the organization a long time. So because it's a newer organization, he sits at the top of the totem pole. How does the organization structure itself? Where do you find yourself? Are you under HR? Are you under marketing? Or where is the work that you do in the corporate organizational structure?
Yeah, we corporate social responsibility sits in our marketing function, and so in particular, we're on the brand sponsorships and content team, which is an interesting title. But we work across the company, though. I think you all know, in working with large companies, nothing happens in just one area. We obviously collaborate significantly with HR in particular around our employee volunteerism pieces, but also one of our key focus areas for our giving is around career exploration and preparation to create a diverse and inclusive workforce of the future. So with those types of programs, we're working closely with HR. We also work really closely with all of the business lines, but we sit in marketing because of that tie to looking at the external relations. And our communications team is also in marketing, so it has both the internal and external focus, which has been a good fit for the way we work.
So there's so now we've gone from Kevin, there's probably a VP that oversees marketing, and then the individual that you report directly to sits in marketing. And talk to us a little bit about your role and your team.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And what do you guys work on day in and day out?
Lean and mean. I'm at Corebridge. And so we have 2 of us that are the CSR team, and we oversee charitable giving and sponsorships and our strategic partnerships, employee volunteerism, and those employee wraparound programs like the matching grants, volunteer time off, and what we call our Compassionate Colleague Fund, which is an emergency assistance fund for employees in need. So that's really at the core of it. And when I talk about strategic partnerships, for us, when we look at our giving and sponsorships in the community, we very rarely, quote, just give anymore. We really have moved toward a more strategic approach of, it's like fewer better, fewer, more significant partnerships where we are really, it's a true partnership, but we're really working hand in hand with that nonprofit. And so there's a funding component, there's an employee engagement component. We might have people engaging on the boards. We might be leveraging our communications and marketing to support their mission. We might be engaging employees in fundraising. It really depends based on the partner, but that's what we look at. So when I say those things, oh, we do, giving and sponsorships, and we do volunteerism, and we do this, it's not so siloed. Like, we try to leverage all of those basically tools we have to take action in the community together. So it's a pretty integrated approach, and we have, these different sort of lanes of ways we're able to engage. But we look at them pretty comprehensively as like, this is how we do CSR.
I'm finding that more and more. I'm seeing that, Shanda, where you're not just writing a check any longer. You're looking at other things, other ways to engage with the nonprofit. And employee volunteering has really become, it's no longer just a trend. It seems to be becoming sort of a necessity, certainly. Let us understand, why do companies do that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and every company has their own, goals and objectives for what they do. But I think in general, it's pretty easy to say that a trend in the world of CSR is that linkage between your CSR initiatives and your employee engagement. And it's really that entire cycle of the employee experience, from recruitment to engagement to advancement and the DEIB piece. Like, we know all the statistics out there show that CSR is important to employees of all generations. We hear it more about millennials and Gen Z prioritize it, but it's also, there's a huge service ethic in the boomers. I'm a Gen Xer. We know it's important to colleagues. We also know that in spite of the various, hoopla that's happening, on social media around DEIB, that it's a priority for companies, regardless of what's happening in conversations in the media. It's a priority for most companies, and they see that CSR efforts are a way to support DEIB efforts as well. The other piece is that we know, like, writing a check is good. And I know all of you are doing fundraising, so it's really good from that perspective. But we can amplify the impact of that check by leveraging our army of really talented employees in ways, whether it's just the one and dones, but they come in and get a ton of work done for you in one day, or, more skills-based and leveraging their expertise and their passion. We see that as that amplifier. Like, money is important and we want to be able to do that. But if we can amplify that investment by engaging our colleagues and the power that they have in their networks, we see that as having a much bigger impact than, quote, just a check.
I would imagine, though, because there are so many different causes and so on, that when you developed the CSR program, you sat down with your team and you talked about what causes you would support. How did you pick which causes? I'm assuming that you've got causes that you support, that is not every single sector out there that you will fund. How did you come about choosing the ones that you did?
Yeah, so it is strategic. If we had all the money in the world, we could support all the causes in the world, but we don't, right? But we also wouldn't have a very big impact because we wouldn't be able to truly engage with all of those. So again, going back to that fewer, better kind of mentality of, we want to really make a difference, we need to be really focused. We need to align it with where we have expertise and align it with what we do as a business. So for us, our CSR strategy completely aligns with really the North Star of the company. Going back to what I said before, action is everything. We're about truly taking action, and that applies to our social impact as well. But again, our company purpose is about helping people take steps for their own financial goals. So that is the overarching umbrella, and again, the North Star for our CSR efforts. So if we start with that, we're all about helping people achieve financial wellness. Then what issues and what types of partnerships address that overarching goal, right? So when you think about helping people get to financial wellness or financial security, we need to meet people where they are. And when we're thinking about that from a business perspective, it's a little different from when we're thinking about it from a CSR perspective. We have a huge focus on helping people who are most in need. So when we're talking about folks who are, homeless or living in poverty and trying to move forward, we're not talking quite yet about financial wellness. We are talking about financial stability. How can we help people become financially stable to then be on that pathway towards, stronger financial security down the road? So looking at programs that work with people, again, transitioning out of homelessness or helping people find and improve their job skills for kind of careers of today. We also fund direct financial empowerment programs. We have a heavy focus on financial literacy and in financial empowerment programs. And then we look at what are the other key issues that contribute to helping people achieve financial stability and security. Education we all know that education is a pathway towards financial security. We also, with our group retirement business, K through 12 and higher education are two really important client segments. We are working every day with teachers and, college professors and staff on their financial future. So we're learning and we know the struggles that they have in their day-to-day work. So how can we help support K through 12 and higher ed? And then health. We know that having good health is really key to financial security and stability. And we also know that as people are living longer, that has an impact on how they plan for their retirement. So it's very interesting for us to look at how do we support health and wellness. And healthcare is another one of our key client segments on the group retirement side. So, the shortage of frontline healthcare workers, the crisis of not having enough nurses in our country, all of those are things we look at from a CSR perspective, seeing that they align with who we are as a company and where we have some knowledge and expertise and passion within our workforce of how we could help in those areas. So it's kind of a bigger explanation, but if you think about it, that financial wellness, financial security umbrella, funding programs that directly address that, but also funding, the interconnected issues of education, health, diverse and inclusive workforce, preparing people from underrepresented populations for careers in our industry, but also just kind of industry of the future to help get them on that pathway to security as well.
That's quite a big list. If I'm looking at this, financial wellness, you talk about health, of course, job skills, financial literacy, home security, education. What's missing? Well, arts and culture, pets, environment, social justice.
Yeah, we don't fund in those areas. We're very focused on what's core to our business and what's important to our key clients.
Yeah.
Also knowing that those other causes are really important, maybe not best for us to address. We really don't have credibility in those issue reviews.
Yeah.
But that leads to the other piece of, but we also know our employees are passionate about all those things. We have a really diverse employee base, again, all over the country. And that's where the matching grants come into play. That's a way we can help employees support the causes they care about. It's where our volunteer time off comes into play. They can volunteer with things of their choice. With our volunteer efforts, we try to keep them as focused as possible on our core focus areas, pillars of giving. But we also know that various teams, our employee resource groups, and individual employees want to rally the troops, if you will, around their key causes and what's really important locally. And maybe is not on the radar of us as a national company, but is really a priority in a local community. So we have kind of a self-service model there too, where we have systems in place to support, any employee can set up a volunteer event and get other employees to go join them in the community. And we have a system for them to use and get t-shirts, etc. They don't have the full force of the two of us in CSR helping them advertise. We're small but mighty. But we have that. We want to. It's. I think every company, and I've worked with several companies in CSR. It's that balance of corporate focus to have a bigger impact that align with who you are, but also knowing employees that have diverse interests and how do you support them in a way that's meaningful without diluting the impact you're trying to have.
So that is philanthropy. How did you and your colleague, here you are, you've decided what the core pillars are, and you've got a budget. Okay, Corebridge gave you a budget. Okay, this is what you can give away in grants. And so who was your first recipient, and how did you choose that person?
So we had legacy partnerships in grantees in communities around the country from as we were AIG Life and Retirement. So as we were preparing to separate and starting to look at what our strategy would be as Corebridge, separate from AIG, we really, looked at 2023 was a transitional year. Like the company really just now is separate from AIG. Like, there's just it's a long breakup, with systems and, so many different things. So we, a little bit of 2023 was, like I said, legacy of continuing partnerships that we knew still made sense for Corebridge and would just kind of maintain and look at what does that look like going forward. But it also, and this happens with every company when there's major change, it was, sunsetting partnerships that may have been around for a long time, or maybe something that had just recently been started, but really didn't make sense for the direction of who we are as Corebridge and with our limited resources. One of the interesting things is that, when we were under AIG, the AIG citizenship budget was very large. They're a global company. They have a team of 5. So they did a lot of larger scale, like national partnerships that, employees anywhere could take advantage of, got the AIG name out everywhere. Most of their money actually did go to funding the employee programs because the company was so large. But because they did those kind of national and global level partnerships, the little budget that we had in life and retirement was focused on kind of local partnerships in our hubs, right? Mm-hmm. So all the money was going to smaller local initiatives where we had employees involved. Well, then we split off, and then we no longer had all that money that AIG was doing that we got to be a part of, and we didn't get any more money than we had when we were under them. So we've been having to shift from that local focus to we're now a national brand, and we need to have more national level partnerships that employees anywhere can engage in. Like it can't be all about Houston is what I hear a lot from other colleagues who are like, why is everything in Houston? So that's part of the growing pains, right, of a spinoff and creating a new company is that it's that transition. So things that were beloved for a long time, but just no longer really align for Corebridge specifically, they had to be sunsetted or slowly wound down, or maybe AIG kept them and we didn't. So it's a long process. And this is the second time I've worked for a company that was a spinoff. And so going through that process, it's a lot of not easy conversations, but I think all of you working in nonprofit know things change within companies and even foundations of how that focus works. So that's kind of been the process. We still this year are continuing that narrowing, if you will, of we have now 8 what I would call national partners that we're working with, which might still be too many as we move forward because it's hard, again, to really go deep and do as much as we can with each partner. So we're ongoing conversation. One thing we did do this last year, which we hadn't had before, is we did launch a charitable giving steering committee that's made up of senior leaders from the core areas of the business that have the most interaction with CSR. So it has representatives, obviously our leader from marketing, a leader from HR, a leader from legal, a leader from our investments team, and then a leader from the core lines of business. I might be leaving out one group, but I'll put those in writing to you, Joy, for the takeaways.
Okay.
And that's been really great because we had developed this strategy. We were, kind of shopping it around internally with different leaders to see, like, how does this resonate for you? Are we missing something that hits your goals? But then that committee is where we solidified it. And they gave us more feedback. And they have also been the ones of like, this is great. I think we still need to be more narrow because it's very hard to tell the story of any impact if you're doing many different things. And I think you all have that in nonprofits as well. If you have a really large organization with lots of different programs that are not so connected, it's very challenging to tell the story of who you are. But when your mission is really clear and everything you do aligns with that, the story makes the case for itself. And that's something we have to think about too. And the better job we do of that, the more resources we will get to do more in the community.
Right.
We have to, just like all of you, we have to show the impact of what we're doing.
Right. You're giving away money. You have to show what you're getting in return for it. Interesting. I like the fact that your CSR department is under marketing, which means that it's not hard for you to get sponsorship dollars because you're already under marketing, which also I want to point out that you're not a separate entity. You are not a foundation. Everything you are doing is under the heading of Corebridge Financial, the company. So that means that sponsorships are easy to get. Do they go to the same group of 8 national partners? Do you spread out the sponsorship dollars a little bit more? Talk to us about that, and then I'm going to open it up to Q&A.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little different. So when I say with the CSR budget, where we have that steering committee and this very focused, aligned area, that is for the money that we control in the CSR budget under marketing. We also have sort of a unique approach that each of the businesses and functions in the company are allowed to budget in their own budgets to do some charitable giving. And it really depends on the leader and the business function and what the CFO says when budgets get approved, how many of them do that. So there's some of that happens. And a lot of times it's something, I'll give you an example. We have a real estate group because part of our investments are into real estate. So at the end of the year, the real estate group decided we don't want to send gift baskets anymore. I'm like, thank you. We want to make charitable donations, in honor of our clients. And because we're real estate, we want to do this for a group that helps people get out of homelessness. Awesome. Love that. It's aligned. It makes sense. And they're paying for it out of their budget. And then that's even better for me, right? So we have things like that can happen. And so, like I said, it varies by the business line. There's only a handful that really do budget to do that because they really just work under the partnerships we run. But there's business case for those, right? Mm-hmm. I will say that our retirement services group, the one that I've talked about the most, they have a pretty significant budget to do sponsorships and donations, again, related to their business. And that's the group that serves nonprofits, right? So as you all know, as fundraisers, you're always told, go to your vendors. If you're paying people something, they should be donating to you too, right? So that happens, right? All of these hospitals and school districts and nonprofits that we work with often come to us and ask their local financial advisor that's helping them say, hey, can you guys sponsor our gala? Can you sponsor our golf tournament? So that group has a decent, and I will say though, they tend to be small sponsorships. It's one of those where we don't do fewer better. We try to serve as many people as we can, with the budget during the year, making the business case. The thing I should mention about us that's interesting, and if you work with other financial services companies, you would know this, we are a highly regulated industry. I used to work in oil and gas, which is highly regulated, but in a completely different way. No one really cared what we were doing on a compliance perspective for corporate giving. But in financial services, and in particular what we do with the group retirement business, there are a lot of rules around, they call it pay to play. So our compliance team has to look at any donation or sponsorship that's $5,000 or more to make sure there's not a perception of, we donated to this school, so they would pick us to provide their retirement plan. It sounds odd that could even be a perception for a $5,000 gift, but because the industry is so regulated, all of that happens, all of our gifts, no matter which area from the business, we have a compliance review. And I've learned a lot about that in the last 3 years. And it's good. It's really good due diligence, but it's just different. So for us, for sponsorships, it's not, from a CSR perspective, we're doing fewer and fewer. We're really trying to align our money more with funding the work. And then we might do a small sponsorship as part of the bigger partnership. But we very rarely anymore are like, we'll be the top sponsor of the gala, or we'll be the top sponsor of this. We're really trying to direct our money more to the programmatic work. There are some exceptions where the sponsorship and the PR piece makes sense because of something we're doing as the business, but it's less of our focus at the moment. That could change because, again, I do sit in work. There'll be different times. But yeah, it's an interesting model of, businesses who kind of do their own things. And so even though we don't have control over their budgets, our department is in charge of the review process and due diligence. So we work really closely with the compliance team for their part of the review of those gifts. And then we do the due diligence review around good standing with the IRS, reputational concerns, that part of it. So
for sure,
some of the gifts, the review process probably cost us more than the actual gift because so many eyes are on it. But you guys probably work with other financial services company where you're like, why does this take so long? And hopefully it's not just us, but hopefully for you, it is just us and others aren't as. Yeah.
I love having you as a speaker because you are presenting another structure. We've had AIG, by the way, speak at our conference, one of our conferences. We had AIG speak. They've got the foundation, and a lot of other big companies, they've got the foundation and what have you. But here's an example of a business, a big business, that decided to keep everything in-house, and you're managing it all under the heading of the corporation. So it's really great to see this and to talk to you about this. I mean, I've got a whole lot of questions here, but I also know that we have got a group of attendees who are ready to ask questions. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the chat and see, Lean, the pillars are very authentic to your brand, but it's also great to hear how you expand it to the employees via matching donations. Brooke, thank you for contributing that. Marty, always good to see you. Janice, with a birthday in a little over a week. She's a millennial. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Now, you are welcome to come and raise your hand. And there we go. We know how to do this, don't we?
I see one go. Takeda?
Yes. Communities in School. Great. I love that organization. Takeda, what question do you have for Shanda?
Yes. Thank you for that overview. Really appreciate it. I'm with Communities in Schools. I think one of the questions that has been brewing for me, and probably been over the past 4 years since pandemic, is around trust-based philanthropy. I know the president of T. Rowe Price Foundation. He's a heavy hitter and really pushing the needle. Just thinking about, we all going into kind of like the Mackenzie Scott grants that can range anywhere from, $500,000 to $200 million, right? But thinking about as a spinoff from AIG, and even I don't know who attended that the corporate giving, the event that took place on March 14th and 15th. The head of KPMG just talked about like sometimes the companies are still in this impact report metric, and I know that organizations have to be. I just wanted to get your thinking around where Corebridge, or just your thinking from the perspective of simplifying and really trusting the nonprofits that are stewarding the funds and doing the work on the ground with evidence. I just wanted to get your thoughts and your temperature in that space.
I love this question. And John from T. Rowe Price, he's like the corporate ambassador for trust-based philanthropy. I had him speak at a conference I helped run in Denver a couple of years ago. There aren't enough companies that are fully embracing it. And I say that too, as us as well, because it is tricky because we have to do so much to make the case internally to get more money, right? To be able to give out. So it's like we're stuck in that same kind of treadmill. I would say this from the perspective that we take, and this is how I built it at my last company, which was a lot smaller and a lot easier. But this is why we really have moved to this more of a partnership model and, the fewer better, because if we do this right and we build these partnerships where it's year-round engagement, every employee can tell you, these are the 3 groups we work with, or these are the 4 groups we work with. And this is how I personally have engaged. This is what I saw the company do with them. And we start to see that true relationship building, like the impact will come out of how we tell the story through our engagement versus we need you to do a report every quarter and count how many people clicked on social media. And we need to know test scores each quarter. We are never going to be at that level of, how some foundations are, frankly. One, we wouldn't have the capacity to read the reports. I'd just be perfectly honest. Like, I'm going to make our partners do a bunch of reports that I do not have time to read and I know wouldn't impact our decision making. So that's part of like how when we think about partnerships, and again, we are still kind of so new in this model, and we have this new committee is really great, but I think, from your side of like, as you're building partnerships with companies, like early on talking about, what does success look like to you? Like, why would you invest in this partnership? Like if we were to say it was successful in a year, what would that look like? How would we tell that story for you? Because I think that's what's happening more in companies is that, how do we tell that story? And, for some companies, they want to say we had 100,000 hours of employee volunteerism. That sounds great. But what if you got 100,000 employees? That's really not that big a deal. 1 hour per person, right? But I think, every company is different. I don't think people are using the trust-based philanthropy because I think sometimes if you said that to some leaders that are very metric-oriented, they would freak out. But if you say, we're doing this partnership and here's how we're going to tell the story of our impact, they're like, I like that. We need to talk about our impact. So it's I always say it's more of an art than a science. And I think, there's the pros and cons, right? Like if companies are doing hundreds of small gifts, they're probably not hopefully not asking for a ton back. I know some still do. But I think that's where, nonprofits can push back and like, hey, for $5,000, here's we can give you.
Great. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Does anybody else have a question? Remember, Shanda is a wealth of information. Not only is she a CSR specialist, but she's worked, I see at Hillary, she's worked in the nonprofit sector for 10 years. So she knows both sides of the aisle, so to speak. So she's wonderful. She's just brilliant. Hillary, hi. And Hillary is a graduate of the corporate giving certificate course. So, she's an alumni. Yeah. Good to see you, Hillary.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking today, Shanda. My question was just, does Corebridge have employee resource groups and are they involved at all with CSR work?
Such a great question. And absolutely, yes. They are really a key engine of driving the culture within our company. And they are just great partners to us in CSR. And we, it's one of those things where, so we have, again, we're, a national company. We have ERGs in our hub offices in Woodland Hills, California, and then in Houston. In our New York, New Jersey area, they decided not to do kind of an in-person ERGs there, but we created finally this year a national network for the ERGs so that people anywhere could participate. And the New York, New Jersey folks are heavily represented in that national group, and then they sometimes do in-person things. So the way we work together is kind of twofold. They're my key partners, like for some of our signature partnerships I was talking about, when it aligns well with the ERG's focus, they become like the driving engine for some of that volunteerism and engagement. We have several partnerships where I collaborate with HR and our early careers team that are focused on DEI, and diverse recruiting pipeline. And so ERGs are heavily involved in those. But also, our young professionals, now called Rising Leaders in Houston, they years ago kind of adopted junior achievement as one of their passion projects, as well as working with our local homeless shelter there. Both of those are partners that have continued as Corebridge and align with our strategy. So that ERG, leads that. And then the other thing, right now it's Global Volunteer Month. We have like 20, it changes every day, 27, 29 events happening this month. About a third of them, ERGs are involved in some level of that organization and planning. Sometimes they say, hey, Shanda, we don't want to do anything. What do you need us to do? And they take it. Other times they're like, our veterans ERG, my dad's a vet, so they get a little extra attention from me sometimes. They wanted to do I actually had this idea for them of doing something for the huge veterans hospital in Houston. So sometimes we curate for their particular cause. Other times they're that engine for what we're already doing from a CSR perspective. Love the ERGs.
Great. Thank you for that question, Hillary. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, Takita has a interesting question having to do with multi-year grant making versus annual grants. What's your philosophy on that one, Shanda?
I have a personal philosophy,
Nikki.
which I think they are great. It's really hard. I have never worked at a company that officially allowed multi-year giving. That's because in companies, it's unlike foundations where, they have that 5-year average that determines what they can give out. Companies are just so susceptible to dramatic changes in their financial situations that, to me, that's the main reason of not making multi-year commitments. We're not allowed to. We certainly go into these partnerships with the philosophy of, we know only so much can be done in 1 year, and we would like for this to be a longer relationship, but we don't get to make that financial commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I know that's, we've got the Bridging the Gap. That was a roundtable conversation that we have here in Seattle once every quarter. And that's one of the things that the nonprofits hope and wish, that there were more organizations committing to multi-year grants. Because every year you have to go through the process. It takes you time and energy and money, and you got to remember if you miss the cycle. That reminds me, are you invitation only, meaning that,
It's interesting. So we don't have like a formal grant application process. We have this whole internal review process, but it's very more relationship driven, where I have conversations with people, and if it seems like a good fit, we'll have them submit something that we can kind of bring forward to the committee. The committee is still pretty new, but we also don't do a formal like RFP invitation. It's much more outreach to groups that we have worked with in the past, or that maybe an employee has brought to us, or I learn about from an event like this, and we kind of see, where it could go. We are in the place, though, now it is really tricky, because as we are narrowing, but then figuring out some of these legacy partnerships, do they continue? Do we sunset? Do we grow? It's all the math. It's been hard for us to look at too many new things, but we want to start to look for some new things that maybe just we didn't know about before. So I always encourage people to reach out, and if it's a no, it's a no, but it might sometimes be a not right now, but can we talk to you later? But it really varies. Like, we're not, I don't know, it's the pros and cons of like a very formal structured process where it's kind of really clear. But we really do take more of this relationship-based approach of getting to know people, seeing what the possibilities are, doing a lot of that work up front of like, what could this really look like? And then we just go get it approved on our side, versus put this whole thing together and apply. And then, it's opposite. We do the work up front is what I Our matching grant program, I know I'm almost out of time, is incredibly generous. Employees, it's a 2-to-1 match, up to $10,000 per employee per year. So, and we have employees who, like, in January, they write that $5,000 check, and then their charity gets $10,000 from us. It's very generous. It's very generous.
And do they have to be one of the pillars? It has to fit.
Nope.
It could be anything.
Nope. Yeah, the matching grants truly are for employees' passions. They have to have 1 year of service with the company before they're eligible. And it's a pretty loose, like I said, we have a lot of compliance, but that program really is meant to be able to support most causes. It's the things you would normally think would be disqualified. But yeah,
that's wonderful.
Great.
Karun, how long have you been with the company?
Longer than 1 year.
Good. Oh, okay. All right, folks, it is 1:00. This has been wonderful. Thank you so very much. I'm sure that you have other commitments on your calendar. Shanda, I look forward to seeing you in is it Los Angeles?
Yes.
Yes. When do I see you in LA?
I don't know. I think May 15th or something.
Yes, May the 15th. Terrific. And the reason I'm going to LA then is because the Los Angeles Business Journal, they have their Corporate Citizenship Awards on the 15th. And then we also have our Los Angeles Advisory Board meeting around that time as well. So thanks again so very much. I hope you're going to be my guest, I hope, at that event.
I am.
Good. And as a thank you for doing a fantastic job.
No, I like I said, I'm a former development director, so I just, as much as I can share to help you do your jobs, whether you're asking me or somebody else, I'm pretty transparent. So I really enjoyed it. So thank you all.
Thank you.